This is Rabbi Brovender Parsha Shiur of the WebYeshiva. We're going to talk a little bit tonight about Purim, but in a kind of odd way. This year is given in memory of Dr. Chuck Feldman, Zichrono Livracha, dedicated by his loving family. You remember Yitro. It was only a few parashiyot ago. Yitro begins, the first pasuk in Yitro, Vayishma Yitro. And Rashi points out that there were specific things that Yitro heard, which enabled him to make the decision to come and join up with Am Yisrael. Yitro knew that something important, very important, was about to happen in the world that he was accustomed to. And because of that knowledge, he made the decision to take the wife and children of Moshe Rabbeinu and come to the camp of Israel, about to receive the Torah at Har Sinai.
Okay, the Shiur started.
And so Rashi says, Eze Shmuah Shama'u Ba. What was it that convinced him? What did he hear that made him come? And Rashi points to two events of special significance. Kriyat Yam Suf and Milchemet Amalek. So Kriyat Yam Suf we have spoken about, I think, in a manner that was reasonable. But what exactly did he hear about Milchemet Amalek? To the best of my understanding, I'm going to look at the psukim together. The best of my understanding, the Milchama of Amalek was not quite as impressive as you might think. Let's look at it again. The pasuk that we're interested in, the psukim begin with pasuk Chet in Perek Yud Zayin. Vayavo Amalek. Vayavo Amalek. The Amalekites came. They came to do bad, to be bad and do bad. Vayilachem im Yisrael b'Refidim. And they were in battle with Yisrael in a place called Refidim. Now that doesn't sound particularly odd. I mean, here you have this horde of people coming out of Egypt, escaping the stable world that Egypt was used to. And the Amaleki were perhaps worried, as was Balak ben Sipor, when he saw that the Yisraelim were approaching his territory, he was worried. What good could come of this? We don't know exactly what the Amalekites were thinking when they came to fight against Bnei Yisrael. When they came to fight Bnei Yisrael, Rashi discusses the Smichut Parshiot. Maybe we'll skip it, the first Rashi for the moment. We'll see that in Pasuk Tet, Vayoma Moshe el Yehoshua. Vayoma Moshe el Yehoshua. So Yehoshua apparently at that time was also a name, a person to be reckoned with. He was known. Vayomer Moshe el Yehoshua, Bechar lanuch anashim, Bechar, take only the best of the people, of the men, V'tzehi lachem ba'Amalek, and you go out and fight with Amalek machar. We'll start tomorrow. Machar anochi nitzav, and tomorrow I will be standing al Rosh HaGivah, at the top of the hill, u'matay Elokim b'yadi, and the staff of HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'yadi. Now, what exactly Moshe Rabbeinu thinks he's going to be doing, and why he needs a staff to do it, is not yet clear to us. But if we look again at the Rashi, Bechar Lanu, see the Rashi. Bechar Lanu, li v'lecha, Lanu, to us plural. For me, Moshe Rabbeinu said for you. Hishveu lo. Here Rashi says, gee, who's this Yoshua? He's exactly on a par with Moshe Rabbeinu. Mikan amru, Yehi kavod talmidecha chaviv alecha kishelcha. So Rashi is kind of stuck. He's like, why does the pasuk compare Moshe to Yoshua? We realize that that's an untenable comparison. So his answer is, it's to teach us something. He's not Moshe Rabbeinu and Yoshua, really, but Yoshua was a Talmud of Moshe Rabbeinu, and we know there's a principle. Yichabot talmidcha chaviv alecha kishelcha. Very often, Talmidim don't get the proper amount of proper response for, don't get the proper response from their Rebbe. And so Chazal said, Yikavot talmidcha chaviv alecha kishelcha. Okay, that's good. But it doesn't tell me why hishvehu lo. I mean, it's good to know the principle. Uchvod chavercha kemo kemora rabcha. And you should honor your fellow as you would honor your Rab. Minayin. How do you know that? Shene'emar vayomru Aharon el Moshe bi Adoni. V'halo Aharon gadol me'achav. Isn't it true that Aaron who said bi Adoni, please, my master, he said to Moshe Rabbeinu, isn't it true that Aaron was older? V'oseh et chavero kirabo. And he said, my chaver is like my master, my teacher. Umora rabcha k'mora shamayim minayin. And how do you know that the fear of your Rab should be like the fear of heaven? Shene'emar, similarly, in the same pasuk, Adoni Moshe Klaim. Klaim in ha'olam, lock them away. When he spoke about the ones who were prophesying against Moshe Rabbeinu, Yoshua. Chayavim heim kilaya. They are reasonably put away. Hamoridim becha. Those who deny your authority. Ge'ilu mardu be'akadosh baruch hu. So this is really an issue, according to Rashi. Why did Moshe say to Yoshua, "Bechar lanu anashim"? I mean, Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't seem to be participating in the same way that Yoshua is participating, and Rashi will make a note of that a little bit later. Let's continue the Rashi. Bechar lanu anashim, bechar lanu anashim, giborim v'yirei chet, powerful men and fear of sin, or those who fear sin, that's gvura. Shetehei zchutan v'sayatan, that they should be able to depend on the fact that their merit will help them in the battle. Sayan davar acher. Furthermore, Rashi says there's another interpretation. B'chal lanu anashim sheyodim levatel kshafim. Pick people who are able to deny the magicians, to show that they're not afraid of magic. Why is that? L'fisha b'nei Amalek mechashfin hayu. The Amalekites were magicians. They believed in magic. They liked magic. Right? We remember We remember when Moshe Rabbeinu threw down the staff and it turned into a snake, and then he picked up the snake and the snake turned back into a. That was kind of magic. And we remember also that Paro asked his magicians to do the same thing, and they did. They did successfully. And because they did that successfully, we can understand that the resolve that Pharaoh had not to let the Jews leave Mitzrayim, that resolve, that determination, that conviction that Pharaoh had came from the fact that he was able to deny the authority of Moshe Rabbeinu by saying that it's magic. Anything Moshe Rabbeinu did is magic. What if his magicians couldn't do it? So Paro would say, so he couldn't do it, but somebody else could do it. There are magicians every place we look. And so here Rashi is saying, what kind of people are we looking for? What kind of people are we looking for? Yodim levatel kishafim, who can deal with magicians. Lefisha b'nei Amalek mechashfin hayu. The people of Amalek were mechashfin. Now this is just another way of saying idolaters. All the idolaters were always thinking of ways to get whoever they believed in to act in there for them. They act for them. And Amalek, they were good at that. It's not in the story, but by Yas Yoshua, Pasuk Yud, Ka'asher amar lo Moshe lilachem ba'Amalek, and Yoshua did it, lilachem ba'Amalek. Moshe Aaron b'chur alo al Rosh HaGibah. For some reason unknown from the pasuk, Moshe, Aaron, and Chur, his brother-in-law, alu Rosh HaGibah. They went up to the top of the mountain. Rashi says Moshe, Aaron, b'chur bikan l'ta'anit shetzrichim shlosha la'avor lifnei hateva. So again, Rashi is steadfast in this idea that the words of the Torah should have special meaning. And when he can't find the obvious meaning, he goes to a less obvious meaning. Sheta'anit hayu shuyim. These three people were fasting. Now, you know that fasting is something you do when there's a critical moment. There's something that happens that has to be dealt with. Chur, who is Chur ben Ashel Miriam Haya, v'kalev ba'ala. So Rashi knows we might ask that question. Who's Chur? Where did he come from? Okay, so Rashi answers the question, but it doesn't tell us why we need three, or why we need Chur, or why we need Moshe and Aaron, or what they were going to do. So then Pasuk Yud Aleph, Vayak Asher Yarim Moshe Yado, when Moshe Rabbeinu picked up his hand, V'gavar Yisrael, V'kasher Yaniach Yado V'gavar Amalek. So this is the battle, is the two forces that are fighting against Amalek. There's Yoshua and the Giborim, Yoshua and his group, and then there's Moshe and Aaron. Okay, they're fighting together, but they're two different methods and two different groups and two different positions that have been adopted, right? V'gavar Amalek, Gavar Amalek, Kasher Yaniach Yado, V'gavar Amalek. What exactly Moshe Rabbeinu's hands have to do with the Milchama against Amalek is not clear, but we know that the Mishnah already pointed out to us that somehow Moshe Rabbeinu made Yirat Shamayim, the fear of heaven, into something to be enthusiastic about. So that the people who were fighting were not just fighting for their own lives or for their own existence or for their own future, but they were fighting with Yira, with fear of God, which means they were fighting with God. They were fighting with God. Pasuk Yud Bet, V'yedei Moshe Kveidim, So it happened in along of this kind of complicated military setup that the Yedei Moshe became heavy. They were tired of it. He was holding them up all the time. Vayikchu eved vayasimu tachta vayeshev aleha. They took a stone and he sat down on it. V'Aaron v'Chur tamchu biyadav, and Aaron and Chur, I guess, held up his hands. He Moshe Rabbeinu, so he would be able to do it. Mizeh echad u'mizeh echad, one on the right and one on the left. V'hi yadav emunah, like this famous comment that the pasuk makes. V'hi yadav emunah. His hands represented emunah, faith, for all the fighters, I guess, the Yoshua and his men. Ad bo hashemesh, until nightfall. Rashi kasher yarim Moshe yado, quoting the Mishnah, v'chi yadav shel Moshe notzchot hayu hamilchama Ideita b'Rosh Hashanah, Kidei Rosh Hashanah in the Mishnah. V'yedei Moshe kveidim, v'yedei Moshe kveidim, b'shvil shenit'atzel b'mitzvah, umana et tachtav.
Acher.
Umana achar, acher tachtav, umana acher tachtav. Shenit'atzel b'mitzvah. I mean, what did Moshe Rabbeinu do? He's holding up his hands all the time until they grew heavy and he wasn't able to do it. They had to support him, but he continued to hold up his hands. V'yidei Moshe kveidim, Rashi says. This is not the natural result of holding your hands up with no limit. That's not what V'yidei Moshe kveidim is. That Moshe was punished. B'shvil shenitatzel b'mitzvah. What was the mitzvah? I don't know. There were no mitzvot, but mitzvah means he was directed by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He was directed by HaKadosh Baruch Hu to fight against Amalek. And he says, I'm not going to go to fight. Umana acher tachtav. And he appointed Yoshua to do the job. Why would Moshe Rabbeinu appoint? I mean, this is not just a simple, straightforward kind of question that seems unnecessary. But Moshe Rabbeinu knew that he was appointed to bring Bnei Yisrael to Har Sinai. And there was no way that if he would undertake to protect Bnei Yisrael, he personally would undertake to protect Bnei Yisrael, there's no way that Moshe Rabbeinu would not be successful. Because Moshe Rabbeinu was appointed to that job. The job that Moshe Rabbeinu had of Manig, of Bnei Yisrael, the job was to bring them to Har Sinai, for Har Sinai to bring them to Eretz Canaan. But Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't fail in that job. So if the Amalekites came to do in Bnei Yisrael and to undo their path, their commitment to Har Sinai, and their commitment after that to Eretz Canaan, the Amalekites would certainly not be successful. So if you had success in your hand, and you said, no, we'll go with another, we'll bring in a pitch hitter. So that's what Rashi is really saying. He's saying, Shenit'atzel b'mitzvah, Moshe Rabbeinu saw there was danger, and he knew that he could do it. Umana achar tachtav, and he said, Yoshua, you do it. Nityakru yadav, that's why his hands became heavy. So the way Rashi reads a pasuk, V'yedei Moshe kveidim, he says, what do you mean? How could it happen? It could only happen if there was a deficiency in the actions of Moshe Rabbeinu himself, and that's what Rashi explains. V'yedei Moshe kveidim, v'yikchu Aaron v'chur even, v'yasimu tachtav, V'lo yashav lo al kar v'kesed. He didn't sleep, he didn't ask to sit on a pillow. Amar, Yisrael shuruyim b'tzar, afanei yema b'tzar. And so, at the same pasuk, Moshe Rabbeinu is accused of not accepting the mitzvah, of doing it Amalek, and increasing his own personal suffering, because Bnei Yisrael, I mean, the leader has to be with the people. The people were suffering, so he also was suffering. Vahi yadav emunah, vahi Moshe yadav be'emunah, perusha parasot hashamayim b'tfilah ne'emana v'nechona. So vahi yadav emunah sounds bad. It sounds, well, I mean, it doesn't sound like something we would easily be sympathetic with. Why are yadav emunah? Why is it his face emunah? His front, his back, standing, sitting? I mean, what's the yadav emunah? So Rashi changes it around a little bit, and he says, "Vahi Moshe yadav be'emunah prusot hashamayim b'tfilah ne'emana." In other words, that what it doesn't mean that his hands were the subject of faith. It means that because of his faith, he spread out his hands. And it's correct that sometimes people daven, they move their hands about. This is not, Rashi is understandable. Rashi is understandable, but you would imagine also that the Yadav Emunah might have been something less than obvious about Bnei Yisrael. That there was Emunah that was missing. Yadav Emunah, that somehow Moshe Rabbeinu was able to generate emunah using his hands. Bizman shebnei Yisrael mistaklin klape ma'ala. Again, not the hands, but the hands. If you hold your hands above your head, you're pointing to heaven. If you point to heaven, then we understand. People are fighting, but they are relying on HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's because of Vayihi Yadav Emunah. Okay. Rashi doesn't say exactly, but we could say it. שהיו המלאקים מחשבים את השעות באסטרולוגיה. באיזה שעה הם נוצחים. The Amalekites would try to figure out what time it would be when they win the battle. So Ad Bo HaShemesh means until sundown. והעמיד להם משה, העמיד להם חמה, והרבה ואת השעות, that Moshe Rabbeinu caused the sun to stand in the heaven, and they couldn't tell what time it was. So the Itztagninut, the magicians, were not able to help them decide when this would happen. And that created, of course, confusion. Now that's somewhat similar to Yoshua bin Nun in Emek Ayalon, Shemesh B'Givon Dom. Yoshua said, the sun and the moon should stand still where they are. Shemesh B'Givon Dom, V'Yareach B'Emek Ayalon. And then Yoshua knew that he would be victorious. So there was a similarity between what Moshe Rabbeinu did, Ad Bo HaShemesh, doesn't mean until nighttime, it means until the sun stopped moving. Until the sun stopped moving. Vayachalosh Yoshua et Amalek, and here's an important word. Vayachalosh Yoshua. Yoshua weakened them. He weakened them. Atach Rashi Giborav, V'lo hishir ela chalashim shebahem. He cut off the heads of the more powerful ones. V'lo hishir ela chalashim sheba. He left them in the battlefield, the weak ones. V'lo haragam kulam, and he didn't kill them all. So we have like a throwback to Shaul HaMelech receiving the command from Shmuel HaNavi, kill them all. And Shaul had mercy on Agag. He had mercy. And his, again, Yoshua, Chotech Rashi Giborav. He cut off the heads of the real fighters of Amalek. V'lo hish'ir ele chalashim shebahem. And he only left the weaker ones. V'lo haragum kulam. The Rashi is writing as though there is a mitzvah of Amalek, killing Amalek. Or maybe there is no mitzvah, but somebody comes to kill you, so you kill them. You have to kill them first. That's a well-known rule. Mikan anu lemeidim she'asa al pi hadibur shel shchina. Mikan anachu lomdim. How do we know it? Because there's no criticism. There's no criticism of Yoshua. He did the right thing. He didn't kill the ones who were weak, according to Rashi, and therefore he denied the ultimate command. So why is it in the Torah? I mean, why did we write it up? Well, I guess because he did the right thing. Pasuk Yud Gimel ve'echalosh Yoshua et Amalek ve'et Amo lefi Chareb. So even et Amo means the strong ones. All that were left were the weak ones. Pasuk Yudalet Vayomer Hashem el Moshe Ktov Zot Zikaron b'Sefer b'Simba Znei Yehoshua. Ktov Zot Zikaron b'Sefer. I mean, what does that mean? Rashi, the Ramban, the Ibn Ezra try to find what sefer it could be that they're talking about, that the pasuk is mentioning. What sefer? What sefer are we supposed to write it in? So Rashi says, Ketov Zot Zicharon. What ma? Rashi Sheba Amalek Lizdaveg Yisrael. The Amalekites came to cleave to the Bnei Yisrael in a negative way. They wanted to kill them. Kodem lechol ha'umot. So Rashi is trying to tell us what the objection, the specific objection, what was the terrible thing that Amalek did. And we see that it was Kodem lechol ha'umot. They're the first ones who came to attack Bnei Yisrael, although we don't understand why that may be such a terrible thing. They were in the land close to Amalek, and the Amalekite may have been afraid. V'simba znei Yoshua. Ktov zot, that you do with your fingers, because in your hand, v'simba znei Yoshua, amachnis et Yisrael la'aretz. In other words, Yoshua, according to Rashi, has gotten an upgrade. In the beginning of this story, he was a Talmud of Moshe Rabbeinu. We don't know why he was chosen. He was chosen. But here, he says, amachnis et Yisrael la'aretz. Sim baznei Yoshua, write it for Bnei Yisrael, but for Yoshua, put it into his ear, tell it him orally. Sheyitzavet Yisrael lishalem lo et gvulo, to command Bnei Yisrael to repay what he deserves. Kan nermaz lo leMoshe. This turns out to be a remez to Moshe, nitbelo leMoshe. Sheyoshua machneset Yisrael haaretz, that Yoshua will bring Bnei Yisrael into Eretz Yisrael. Simbas ne Yoshua. Put it as ne Yoshua is a lot more current, a lot more impressive, a lot more personal. So he says, Ketov Zot Zikaron b'Sefer, that's for Am Yisrael. That the Am Yisrael should remember who Amalek was. Who was Amalek? They came, the first ones who came to attack Bnei Yisrael. Simbos ne Yoshua. Why is this important? Why is what important? That Bnei Yisrael should have a memory of the story of the Sefer, and Yoshua should be the one who gets it like personally. It's for him. Ki macho emche. Right, that double use of the verb. Impressive. Maybe it's they say, I always used to say, when the teacher tells you it's for emphasis, that means he doesn't understand it. So I won't say that. But ki macho emche is a common kind of thing. The things are important. Use the double verb. Paranomazia. Ki macho emche et zecher Amalek. So you have in the pasuk a contradiction. Tov zot zikaron b'sefer, b'cho emche et zecher Amalek. And maybe that's something that we should pay attention to. Tov zot zikaron sheba Amalek listabek liYisrael konu l'cholamot v'simbos ne Yoshua hamachnis et Yisrael la'aretz. Rashi. Sheitzavet Yisrael l'shalem lo et gvulo, should take from Yisrael his compensation. Kan nirmaz lo leMoshe sheYoshua machnis et Yisrael la'aretz. Sheitzavet Yisrael l'shalem lo et gvulo. Kan nirmaz lo. Sorry, I read the line again. Nirmaz lo leMoshe sheYoshua machnis et Yisrael la'aretz. Ki macho emche, lachen ani mazhircha. Therefore, my warning to you, mazhircha. Kain, ki chafetz ani limchot. I would like to deny the actions of Amalek, to take a stand against them. Take a stand. Pasuk tetvav. B'cho emcha et zecher Amalek mitachad hashamayim. A little strange, isn't it? That the operative part of the story, after the story is over, the war is over, the sun has set, Yoshua takes the reins, and the two things that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants, Tov zot zikaron b'sefer. The reason for writing it down in the Sefer, and I told you that the Rishonim all wonder about what Sefer it is. The Ibn Ezra says it's Sefer Milchamot Hashem. There was such a thing. The Torah mentions it, Sefer Milchamot Hashem. And the Ramban thinks it's the Sefer Torah. The Klodo Zikarabah Sefer, that's Parshat Kitei say that we read on Parshat Zachor in order to do the mitzvah. Ki macho emche et zecher Amalek mitachad hashamayim. In other words, macho emche is a promise. Amalek will disappear. And Amalek did disappear, but there was a time where there was Tov zot zikaron b'sefer. It was what the memory of what happened to be kept alive. Read it from the book from time to time. And the second thing is, macho emche et zecher Amalek. There will be no memory of Amalek. And interestingly enough, that's the situation we're in today. We don't know where there is an Amalekite, but we remember that whatever Amalekite stands for, whatever Amalek stands for has to be wiped out. And that's a kind of difficult. If there's a promise of Zecher Amalek, if there is such a promise, then why write it up in a sefer? Why not just let HaKadosh Baruch Hu take care of the whole thing? And here we know the last pasuk. Vayiven Moshe mizbeach v'yikra shemo Hashem nisi. Okay. Now the pasuk, which is the showstopper, Vayomer ki yad al keifka מלחמה להשם בעמלק, מדור. That's the pshat in the pasuk in Tehillim. Iva, Aleph, Vav, Pei, Lemoshav Lo will become regular. Because these two words are missing letters. Case is a short form of kisei, seat. Ka is a short form of God's name, Yud Kei Vav Kei. So the missing letters are Aleph, Vav Hey, and that's the word Iva Lemoshav Lo. So this is a truly great argument about Amalek. There's something missing in the divinity of God. Yad al Kes Ka, not Yad al Kisei, Yud Kei Vav Kei, but Yad al Kes Ka. And ergo milchama Hashem ba'amalek midor dor. But we don't know where that door is gone to. Not in our door. Okay, let's look at the Rashi. Yad al Keska. Yado shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu hurama lishava b'kis'o, that the arm of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so to speak, is raised to take an oath, b'kis'o liyot lo milchama ve'eva, he will have a war and hate, ba'amalek, olamit, forever and ever, forever. Uma hu kes, umahu kes, below nama kisei. So why Rashi says didn't it say kisei in the pasuk? Vav Hashem nechak lechetzio, and the name of Hashem is Yud Kei Vav Kei. Only you have half of the name Yud Kei. Nishba Kadosh Baruch Hu she'ein shmo shalem ve'ein kis'o shalem ad sheyimche shmo shel Amalek. Amalek, in some reason, has become the ultimate enemy to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'avart ve'evrato ucheshiyimche shemo yeh Hashem shalem v'akisei shalem. Iba l'Moshe Lo. That's what the pasuk. That's what it says. Shneimar ha'oyev tamu charabot lanetzach. Zeu Amalek shekatuv bo Ari Hashem shalem. Konein lemishpat kis'o Ari kis'o shalem. Okay, so there was a way of saying it. I mean, certainly we could go into that at greater length about the kisei and the shame, how it could be that you could have less than the kisei, of course, is the Beit HaMikdash, is the place of davening, it's Amalek. If Amalek is the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash, it would seem that in some way Bnei Yisrael absorbed some of the characteristics of Amalek. But I think that if I ask the question again, when Yitro came by Yishma Yitro, when we say that Yitro heard or understood or knew, what was it exactly that he heard? What was it exactly that he knew that he had not known previously? So Rashi said it was Milchemet Amalek. Now we have to kind of unravel Milchemet Amalek a little bit in order to understand what is going on. Before we do that, I would just like to quote something from the Tanchuma. You know, the Tanchuma is a medrash that Rashi used extensively, especially in his Perush on Breshit, on the book of Breshit, and also the book of Shemot. This is an early medrash, very, very comprehensive. Here in this medrash, this is in Parshat Ki Tetzei. In one of the paragraphs about Zachor, about Parshat Zachor. If we go down to here, there's a quote from a pasuk in Ovadia. You know, Ovadia is one of the books of the Tanakh. It happens to be the shortest book of the Tanakh. It contains only one chapter. And that one chapter is about the war that we wage continuously against Edom. Edom, which became a synonym in Chazal for Rome. Edom, Rome. Esau, Edom, Rome. So Ovadia is talking about Rome, about Edom. And he says this pasuk, Kuma v'nakima aleha lemilchama. Kuma v'nakuma, rise up. We'll go together to war. Amru Yisrael. It was like Ovadia thinks we should go to war against Edom. Amru Yisrael. Ribono shel olam. Einanu yecholim bo. They said to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, how can we do that? We're not going to be able to win. We don't have that kind of power. The Romans are the greatest powers in the world. Einanu yecholim bo. Omer lahem HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to them, Tiyu atem mazkiran shemo milamata, v'ani mochek shemo milamala. If you, atem mazkirim, if you will remind yourselves of his name milamata, the name Edom, but we could easily transfer it because it's in the Parsha of Ki Tetzei to Amalek. If you remember what Amalek did milamata, ani mochek shemo milamala. You won't really have to do it at all. Ani mochek shemo milamala shne'emar yu ad Hashem tamid kol ma she'asa lenegdi v'ikaret me'eretz zichram havei zachor et asher asa. Amalek zachor et asher asa Amalek. So we see that there's another method of doing away with the Amalekites. The Edomites is another method. And that is Zachor et asher asa lecha Amalek. If you remember the Amalekites, and the memory of the Amalekites is in the Sefer that was written at that time, whether it was a separate Sefer or the Sefer Torah, it doesn't matter. We have the memory of Amalek in the Sefer Torah, in the book of Dvarim, at the end of Ki Tetzei, and the Medrash Tanchuma brings us closer to this idea that Zikaron, Zecher, is a fighting force. It does something. It changes the world, the memory of things. Your memory in conversation, in action, in whatever you're doing is changed because of what you remember. So that the Medrash Tanchuma says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to Bnei Yisrael, who said we can't do it, Atem mazkirin shemo milamata, v'ani mochek shemo milamala. If you, Bnei Yisrael, your job fighting the battle against Amalek is to just remember who Amalek is. Remember who Amalek is. And by the memory of who Amalek is, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will be kind of inclined or even forced to destroy the connection of Amalek to the world that was created. And this is perhaps the answer to the mystery of what the Parsha of Amalek taught Yitro. Yitro understood that what we call morality and ethics ultimately, not that we can't make decisions about those things, but ultimately the decisions are in heaven. God decides who lives and who dies. God decides who is victorious and who is vanquished. And this was the lesson that Yehoshua took with him to Eretz Canaan, leading Bnei Israel into. It was a new world in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu was in charge. But in charge doesn't mean that he necessarily was in charge of the rain or the snow. But in charge meant he was in charge of the way we think about things, the way we make it possible for us to adhere to the divine demands. And that's what we call morality. All the best. Have a good Shabbos. Chag Purim Sameach to all of you. Very well.
Thank you, Rabbi. Hag Purim Sameach.